Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. You're on the record. Morphed back 50 years ago, almost to the day, a neophyte kid just trying to get through Harvard Law School, but enjoying sports. Hockey fighting, criminal law, great topic. I proposed to a third-year criminal law professor for sponsorship, except two things, he said. There is no such thing as sports law, and if there was, we don't teach it. Well, a bet, a win, a squash game later, that's another story for another day, able not only to get the paper done, but start on my passion. And years later, by the way, 480 schools teaching sports law, business, administration, politics, and the like. And over 95% of the Big Five sports teams have sports lawyers directly or indirectly involved in them. Certainly has come a long way. I'm excited and honored to bring my Harvard law education and background in teaching to this business over the last 50 years. The books, Sport Business Handbook and otherwise. And most important, my dynamic partnership with CCON Sports Entertainment Innovation Conference every year in Las Vegas, but also other partners, USA Today, FinTech, and a few other exciting announcements to be done down the road. Bottom line is, the pandemic certainly changed the way we think about sports. Clearly the ultimate appointment viewing, but from the business, shared information, best practices, survival of the fittest, and creativity, and all of those issues are on display with some of the thought leaders you have heard from and will continue to hear from every week. A look back, a look forward, what are the trends, how do we survive and thrive from the pandemic? All of those issues brought to the table with some of my friends in the business who are the best and the biggest thought leaders. Have done it for years in the past, will continue to do so. Hopefully you will continue to join me. Thanks again. It's that time of year again, the conflagration of racing, basketball, baseball, announcing the NFL schedule, hockey, majors in golf, and all of the other issues. And today we're going to focus on a lot of that. The opening drive is a big deal. The top 5 issues of the last couple of weeks. Number 1, the investment fund that funds LIV Golf, nearing $5 billion, $4.56 billion, about $1.9 billion allocated since January 2024. Despite the investments, the league reported $84 million in revenue between January and October 24. The thresholds of securing a finalized TV deal with Fox Sports, Scott O'Neill taking the helm, replacing Greg Norman. 484,000 viewers for the Miami event. It's a big deal for LIV, the figure well below traditional events. Obviously more to come as the tides continue to talk. Number 1. And number 2, FIFA deals with World Cup on the women's side, expanded from 32 to 48 nations for the 2031 edition. Why is that a big deal? Well, it's going to be held primarily, we expect, in the U.S. They're the only bidder. The announcement will be made next year, but it looks like those 48 teams will be home in the Women's World Cup, expanded to 32 in 2023, now continuing to rise. The other issue important for FIFA, they have established and approved the FIFA Strategy for Action Afghan Women's Football, which foresees the establishment of an Afghan women refugee team in the near future. Good for them, good for FIFA. That's number 2. Number 3, TKO's revenue growth beats Q1 expectations, raises guidance for 2025, $165.5 million in net revenue. Cost savings drove much of the profit growth, including about $305 million drop in SG&A, largely due to the antitrust suit settlement, paying less lawyers. That's a big deal. The stronger live event hospitality revenue from a Saudi Arabia show plus new higher ticket sales, while WWE posted a $391.5 million, up 24% revenue analysis, buoyed by Netflix media rights deal alongside gains in live events, partnership, consumer products, and in February, TKO completed the $3.25 billion acquisition of IMG. They've done a lot of work, and it's all positive. That's number 3. Number 4, YouTube in the NFL, they do a deal between the Chargers and the Chiefs, announced for the opening game in Sao Paulo, and they're expected to announce YouTube's first broadcast deal on a streaming perspective, breaking the record of last year's 24.3 million average viewers Christmas Day on Netflix. The NFL's broader streaming ecosystem prepares for its third season, carrying out-of-market games. The NFL broader streaming ecosystem includes Amazon's fourth year of exclusive Thursday Night Football coverage and Netflix as a critical long-term strategic partner. Maybe they will get to $25 billion annually when the Roger Goodell charged his staff of doing years ago, and everybody thought he was crazy. Not so fast. Number 5, Gary Bettman not ruling out an expansion opportunity for Atlanta. Thrashers really kind of didn't work. Flames going to Canada. But what Gary Bettman said, as you'd expect him to say, is that those two visits don't have a potential bearing on the future of Atlanta. Quote unquote, circumstances changed. KSE, one of the two potential ownership groups hoping to put down NHL roots in Atlanta. Gary Bettman said the league, quote, isn't planning to launch a formal expansion process, but you can be sure this is a positive statement for those folks in Atlanta. See how it all shakes out. Well, we'll get to horse racing and the Triple Crown, but how about racing of another kind? Mark Miles, born in 1953, came up through the ATP and Indy roots, 1987 with the Pan Am Games, 2012 the Super Bowl. He worked at Lilly and other entities, big-time Indianapolis supporter, and obviously in his current position as the CEO of IndyCar and Penske Entertainment, he has a remarkable footprint on the future of Indy sports, let alone sports in general. 2012, Hulman Company involvement and IndyCar created the relationship. 19, the Penske Group buys the Hulman interest, and the deal, the relationship with Mark Miles, CEO, Penske Entertainment. Actually, Penske involved long before the IMS relationship. Long Beach, 2020 IndyCar Series. Clearly, he has a lot on his plate. The broadcast widens with Fox, the broadcast of international perspective, the IndyCar issues down the road, faces public-private partnership contribution, the impact of gambling, how LIV will support or provide a model for the harmony of sports in the future. He certainly knows it with the prior rift of IndyCar and the Penske Entertainment consolidation. Overall, Mark Miles, a tremendous perspective to deal with this issue and a tremendous perspective on how to take effectively disparate parts and turning it into a tremendous and integrated whole. Ready to talk to Mark Miles before the Indy 500 week? Here he is now. Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. It's probably a lot more now because my buddy on the other end has been in it for a while and it's pushed the revenue up even higher. CEO of IndyCar, Penske Entertainment, diversification, Pan Am Games, Super Bowl, Indy guy, Eli Lilly, ATP. I don't want to start with that. I'll just say good friend Mark Miles. Hi, how you doing?
You're trying to say I've had trouble holding a job.
Well, I'm trying to say you're a little older, and you and I have had that conversation too. I will just say a combination of that and leave it that you are probably one of the more diversified individuals I've ever met. How's that?
Well, I know you're trying to be kind. I'm happy to have this discussion with you. Look forward to it, and good to see you again.
Thank you, man. Good to see you too. So September 2nd, 1953, and maybe one day, 2 days after that, did the Miles family, I know your dad worked at Lilly, et cetera, ever think that, X years later, you'd be a superstar in Indianapolis and basically revolutionize the sports business around the globe?
Yeah, well, I don't think so, but here's the story that comes to mind. I managed Dan Quayle's first campaign, the United States Senate, which was my last campaign after several years, almost 10 years of doing that stuff. And election night, and we win, and my dad is standing there, and my dad was a financial guy. And he says, well, you might make something out of yourself after all. In fact, I'm guessing now you can balance your checkbook. So,
Wow.
so I don't know that my dad had the highest of expectations. My mother, quite the contrary, wanted to see a lot. So,
well, whichever Miles was responsible for your emotional and intellectual development, kudos to probably both of them, because we got to get into your career, and it started well before this, but Wabash University, and then you rose to political stratagem before Quayle, right? You ran Mayor Hudnut's campaign in '79, and when did you realize that, I know you're Indiana based, Indiana born and bred, that Indianapolis would be the perfect storm to be turned into basically the amateur and then maybe the sports capital of the country?
yeah, it's an interesting question, and there's a lot of revisionist folklore around the answer to that question. I was sort of wrapping up my time running around political campaigns and a little time in Washington, D.C. I came home to start a direct marketing company in 1981, I guess. And the Indiana Sports Corporation had been founded in the late 70s. And it was put together by some really smart guys that they sort of looked at me as a younger brother. Most of them had been out of school longer and moved home if they went to university away. And they were determined to try to make Indianapolis, which at the time was called Indianopolis or Knockdown, into a place where they might want to have their careers. And it wasn't serendipity, but it wasn't a long-term strategy, which got us into sports. What happened basically, I know we don't want to take all the time.
No, but it's important. It really is. So.
Well, in the late 70s, Congress passed the Olympic Sports Act, which created a national governing body for each Olympic sport, winter and summer. So overnight, there were these small white-collar entities that were not-for-profits, and most of them were located or locating in Colorado Springs or in the West. And initially, these movers and shakers in town, not elected officials, thought, maybe we could entice some of them to move their headquarters to Indy. And a building was built downtown, and Lilly Endowment helped put some money together to help fund incenting them and moving them. And it was terrific. I think there were probably, I don't know, 10 or so that moved early on. And then after a couple of years, we figured out that, it's not a great business model, because you got, 10, 20 person employers, and they're not really generating for themselves a lot of wealth, and you got to subsidize them every year. But what happened was, in the process of fanning out and getting a bunch of people like us to try to get to know one, so maybe I got tennis, right? Let's go know the USTA, and somebody got figure skating. Well, we got to know them really well, their leadership, and we found out they run events. And then a light went off, and it was like, that's cool. If you can get an Olympic trial or a national championship, and you can bring events to your city, then you bring in other people's money, not recycling your own, and they're on TV. So now we got a marketing thing, a marketing platform. So it was a very entrepreneurial time where we started with one idea about moving these small NGBs to Indy and pivoted to events. But there was never a time when somebody wrote us, a plan. We were just entrepreneurial and doing stuff. And eventually we started thinking about multi-sport events. So we did what was then called the U.S. Olympic, the summer, I can't remember what we call it now. It's the summer.
You're talking about the Pan Am Games. You're talking about,
before
right?
the Pan Am.
Oh,
Games.
okay. Yeah, Turner's deal too, right?
Yeah,
even before that, right?
And then we did the Pan Am Games, and all that required building a ton of venues and practice venues we didn't have. And then we surprised ourselves, and we found out that we're just big enough to have resources sufficient to do these events, but small enough to be able to get the entire community behind it. So for the Pan Am Games, we had 38,000 uniformed volunteers.
Right.
So we were off and running, and it was never during the Pan Am Games. A reporter for National Geographic called us the national the capital, the U.S. sports capital
Right.
of amateur sports in the U.S. It's the first time anybody thought of it that way here. So
Yeah.
we kind of grew to it.
Yeah, but that's typical Mark Miles modesty, because that's part of the story. When you look back at the history of public-private partnerships and sports as business, you're really the first city collectively to embark on a either patchwork or deliberate business strategy treating sports as business. You take all of the issues that we were just talking about and you substitute Saturn or Volkswagen for sports. Everybody understands it. But the idea of Pan Am Games, Super Bowl, economic impact, all of those events, Pacers stay, Colts come, that's all. Sometimes it's happenstance, but you guys got to be proud of yourself for creating this model.
No, it's true. I mean, we are proud. And if I think about the city, Indianapolis, when I graduated from high school and what it is today, it's just unthinkable. But very great source of pride, and really sports has become absolutely one of the leading economic development strategies for our city.
Well, and frankly, it doesn't hurt that you have a facility that standing and sitting holds 350,000 people. We'll get to that in a minute. But so you decide to be a tennis exec, and ATP from 1990 to 2005. Was it because you were a great tennis player? You were a great showman? You were a great executive? How'd you get that gig?
I played Division III college tennis, which is, I mean, nobody ever hired me for my backhand. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I was doing the Pan American Games, and this is a whole nother crazy adjunct to the story. Lilly Endowment had put in a lot of money to build a brand new professional level sports or tennis venue in downtown Indianapolis, which we used for these other events. And I was approached by the guy who was president of Lilly Endowment, and he said, our sense is that our professional tennis tournament is in rapid, steep decline. And we just put $13 million into building a new venue. Do you agree it's in decline? And if so, what would you do about it? And so over a scotch, I said, well, yeah, it's in free fall, and it's because of the way we're doing it. And we need to do these 5 things. And he said, well, write that down on one piece of paper. And the next day I did. It wasn't rocket science. And I'd had, I knew the mayor. I was his campaign manager.
Clearly.
So I quickly become the president of the volunteer president of the tennis tournament while I'm getting paid to do the Pan Am Games. And frankly, it was easy. I mean, if you knew what you wanted to do, this community gravitated and rallied around saving it. We had a great tennis community, and it became the players' favorite for I don't know how many years, well after I left. But in that role, I met everybody in tennis, including all the special guys like Butch Buchholz that and Charlie Passerelle that were the senior tournament owners or directors of North American tournaments. But also then there was kind of a revolution remaking the governance of men's tennis, professional tennis. And I got asked by the North American tournament directors to sort of go to the meetings and try to salvage the situation for tournaments and North American tournaments. So I got involved in meeting all those people nationally, and then they asked me to come run the place. So I never thought about it that way. In fact, through this, I just took the next thing that was really exciting. And I thought about the tennis move for 2 years before we decided to do it.
Well, and let's talk about the next thing that's really exciting. And I want to get back and generalize about your different roles and your kind of perspective on that. But in 2012, so Hulman, the IndyCar, the whole deal that happens there, then ultimately Penske, but the transition to auto racing in the industry for you, easy, hard?
Well, I'll throw in one thing and then quickly get to so we moved back from Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida in tennis, and I take on a not-for-profit, and I'm thinking to myself, I am done with sports. We're going to do civically minded things in our when we have time. And then the newly elected mayor asked me if I'd chair the bid committee and then the host committee for our Super Bowl.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah, forgot. Sorry.
here we
Yeah.
go again, right? Sports.
Yeah.
That worked out. And then, so then the Hulman George family asked me if I'd go on the board as an outside director of their company, and they were trying to increase the number of outside directors. I had been involved in major events, read like the 500 and
Right.
league, ATP. So I thought, well, maybe I can help it. And it really matters to our city and state. So I went on the board, and then a year later, I got asked to come work here. So
Yeah. Right.
was the transition hard? Honestly, I've never thought so. There are a lot of differences, but a league is a league insofar as
Yeah.
you got to make schedules, rules, sanction your stakeholders and your stars. You got to sell sponsorship, do media. All the things you got to do are the same list. Scale matters, and I've in both tennis and here not been on the biggest end of the scale equation. And we the big events. I thought we could put the team together to do the 500 better. So and it turns out that everybody said, nobody, you're herding cats. Nobody can get the team owners of the cars on the same page. Well, honestly, it was easier than tennis. You have fewer of them, more of a common culture, and I think frankly we're starting from a low base, so you could see your way to improvement quickly. So it didn't seem so hard. We've had ups and downs, but we've had solid, steady growth, and now we're going to a period of rapid growth that we're really proud of.
Well, let's talk about the rapid growth, and we'll get back to some generalizations. So, television, the first year of Fox, 17 live races, the numbers candidly weren't that great at the end of last year, non-Indy 500 events, but that's over. And if it wasn't over, the 7.7 billion through 2031 with Fox will certainly help things. Happy with Fox?
Thrilled. I mean, they are passionate about the sport. We've said that about all our partners, including ESPN and NBC previously. But I mean, they really they live and breathe it every day, and they see in our property, as they think about us, a huge opportunity for upside. They go back to the era when IndyCar was bigger than NASCAR, and they remember the so-called split that led to the retrenchment, and they really see us for what we can be. They've been phenomenal promotional partners, right? So they did a great job of creating 4 spots so far that are about making heroes out of our key drivers, and I think they're brilliant. And they've 3 of them ran during the Super Bowl, so that's $30 million worth of time. I'm not sure the NFL loved that, but they've just exceeded anybody's craziest expectations as a promotional partner. But then it's the platform itself. I mean, last year we had 8 events that weren't on NBC network. They were either on cable, USA,
Peacock,
or Peacock
exclusively.
And if we don't move the needle on the average network number, which I firmly convinced we will, but if we didn't, and those 8 events go to network, it's a very substantial increase in our reach and our audience. So, and then finally, they care deeply about the telecast, and so they're investing relatively huge amounts of money on graphics and all the things to make it a great show. And they couldn't be a better partner.
Are you worried about NASCAR and Formula One, or is it tide lifting all boats? Bring it on.
Well, I want to say this with a level of competitive affection. So let's talk about NASCAR. And we do a lot of business together, and it's great.
Yeah.
And I just salivate at the level of rights fees that they get.
Yeah.
Saying that, they've chosen a path to preserve the rights. And so you need, if you want to watch every race on NASCAR under their new arrangements, you need to have Fox, FS1, FS2, Amazon, TNT, Turner, NBC, USA, and Peacock. 8 platforms over the course of their longer season. And I think that's going to be a challenge for their fans and lead to a level of fragmentation. So I'm not wishing this on them, but others have predicted that they will have a very hard time sustaining the same audience levels this year that they had last year, while we're going to go up 30% or more. So they're a big brother, right? And but I think we're going to make some real progress.
In Formula One?
Same thing. We have a bigger television audience last year than they do. Nobody would believe that unless they actually look at the Nielsen data, but our audience is bigger. In part, that's because so many of the races are on different time zones and different parts of the world and harder for fans to cover for them to grow. I think going forward, we'll see what they do. It'll be more of a direct-to-consumer thing than a traditional television platform or even a streaming partner. And so we'll see. That may be a good economic play for them, but I think we got a big opportunity to continue to widen our live sport TV audience gap over Formula One.
You have presided in your majestic career over a fairly turbulent men's tennis organization, not the players, not whatever, we'll just leave it at that. You also have understood the history of kart and IndyCar, the great 30-year ago schism and the bankruptcy leading to some of the problems in the industry. We see LIV, what's happening with them. We see some of the other rifts in sports. Are you comfortable that your sport will transcend all of those differences and politics and survive and thrive understanding the history?
Yeah. Well, obviously it's sports, so it can be volatile, but the answer to your question is yes, I'm confident for lots of reasons. The first is I think stakeholders, whether it's a driver or a team owner, are never going to be totally of one view, and whether that's about an officiating call or a business decision. But I think in part Fox and other things that we've done, including create a kind of it's almost like a property right. We've created a level of team owner that gives them a permanence, and that really has helped align us. And then we just did that. NASCAR's tried to do it. Now they're being sued by one of the teams that left out. So we don't have that. Everybody's a fan of the Fox deal and bullish about our growth. So, and ultimately we have Penske Corp. Roger Penske is our owner. So we're well resourced. When there's something we decide we need to invest in, the revenue's there, or the investment capital is there. So no, I'm very bullish about our growth. I think we got a big upside, and I think it's going to happen fast.
One other piece of growth relative to public-private partnerships, which has been my business for a while. I dabbled in smaller stadiums, and I say smaller, even NFL stadiums are not 350,000, and your 253 acres are now, there's more economic impact in Speedway, Indiana, and the surrounding environs than there are a lot of other big cities. Are you comfortable that the public supports you enough and that you get enough recognition for being unquestionably the largest sporting event, maybe some would say in the world?
Well, from an attendance on a single day point of view, there's no debate.
No, that's right.
We are the global #1 attended a single day sporting event every year with over 300,000 people. It's not a question. If you look at a Grand Slam, for example, and you look at the 2 weeks, it's another conversation. No, we're very comfortable. I think this place, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is it's part of the identity of the city and state, and it's appreciated, and it's growing. We are 10% ahead in terms of units, tickets sold, more than that in terms of revenue over last year. Last year was well ahead of the year before. We got a chance of selling out the grandstands, which will be the second time in 109 events, and it gets stronger every year, and its national prominence, I think, will grow every year. So it's a source of great economic benefit, $1 billion a year in terms of economic impact for our city and state, and a real source of pride for people here.
Here's the final question. What does Mark Miles do for the next 72 years?
I don't think that's what I got to worry about. In the next year or two, I'm just going to smoke you in golf again when we have.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
And,
Yeah.
I want to be here as long as Roger Penske's here. And I mean, he is inspiring, and I've got a real affection for him. And I think for all the reasons that we've talked about and more, we can take this all to a whole nother level in pretty short order. So to have any role in that is a privilege. And I got 7 grandkids, and my wife gets a lot more time with them than I do. But whenever that's in the cards, you can sign me up, starting with this Easter.
Well, Easter's great. Indy 500 coming up. The summer is amazing. We're not getting any younger, but it's really important to value friendships. And when you and I get together, we will find and count one non-gray piece of hair on our respective heads. It's going to take a while.
It's going to come out of your head, not mine.
It may not happen, pal. I will say the industry is in amazing hands for Mark Miles. Thank you very much for doing this, Mark.
Pleasure, Rick. Thanks. Good to talk with you.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon. Mark Miles clearly gives us some perspective going forward as we ready for Indy Racing's Pinnacle Week, 2 weeks and more, the Indy 500. Let's look at the 5 to watch coming up in the next 2 weeks in addition to the Indy 500. Number 1, the idea of dueling stadium processes in Cleveland. Mayor Bibb talks about how he wants to support a $350 million renovation plan, including the state, including the city and the county, to impact renovation of the existing facility. The mayor says it would hurt downtown, or at least the silence implies, the mayor says, it would hurt downtown if a stadium is done in Brook Park, providing land and a significant amount of parking. But it's a different kind of stadium and not the one that people in downtown Cleveland have been used to for a number of years. Stay tuned. The state may have a lot to say about that. Number 1. Number 2, Brazil Canal Goat nets WNBA rights for 2025. It's not just them, 32 WNBA regular season games, but also Copa Libertadores Femenina, South American club competition, the National Women's Soccer League, Serie C in Brazil, Copa Argentina, playoff matches, and all-star game of the WNBA as well. Point is that Brazil, and this is first of many, have a major commitment now for women's sports, Women's World Cup, international. Continue to watch that. Number 3, Alba Berlin swaps the EuroLeague for FIBA's BCL as a larger opportunity may loom. International Basketball Federation FIBA's Basketball Championship, BCL, is going to have Alba Berlin as a competitor and as a participant. The announcement comes after the NBA and FIBA announced in March they would jointly explore creating a Luna League in Europe, which was referenced by the club in its announcement. Quote, by participating in the Basketball Champions League, embarking on an exciting new era reflecting changing European basketball league landscape, the announcement says. Alba Berlin makes their debut in the BCL when the 25-26 season tips off October 7th. That's number 3. Number 4, N3XT next launches a 2025 Digital Trends in Sports Industry report. Guess what they're focusing on? AI, how it's shaping the changes in sports organizations. Data tracking, workforce diversification, personalization, localization to enhance audience engagement. The report discusses the significance of AI governance and training in implementing AI strategies effectively. More to come. That's number 4. And then number 5, look at women's sports and the focus on teams all over the country because of Caitlin Clark and others. Hy-Vee, the grocery chain, teamed with Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark on May 7th to roll out Caitlin's Crunch Time. The monies, 100%, go to the Caitlin Clark Foundation, champion youth education, nutrition, and sports, using these funds to expand local programs. But the most important issue here is the lady is on a cereal box. Wheaties, move over. That's your 5 to focus on in the next couple of weeks. And more important than all of that is the confirmation and the grouping of all of the racing, hockey, basketball, everything else. It is an incredibly dynamic time for the future of women's sports and sports in general. I'd like to thank Mark Miles, the CEO of Penske Entertainment, the Indy 500, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Indy everything, for donating significant time in a very busy month. I'd like to thank Callie Kazare for helping us put the On the Record together as usual. I'd like to thank you all for listening and watching as normal. And once again, in the next couple of weeks, keep focusing on all of the issues involved in the sports and the $1.3 trillion business as we continue to go on the record. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.